Hello, my happy quilters. Welcome back again for block number 6. 6 already.
I know, the
That's
Chatsworth.
halfway.
It is halfway. That's
It is
wonderful.
halfway, of our Chatsworth Block of the Month by Leko. We are coming to you here from Rochester, Minnesota. This is Pine Needles Quilt and Sew. My name's Marcia and this is Joy. And we're going through block by block how to construct this wonderful block of the month. In the back we've got just part of it that you can see, the wonderful Chatsworth quilt. And as I'll just mention before, or I'll mention like I do every time, is that we have kits available. This is exclusive here at Pine Needles Quilt and Sew right now at this time. We are packaging it. The only way you can do it is buying a kit, and we're packaging it with a nice printed pattern for you. But later on, when the book is in print, you will get a signed copy from Leko that we will mail to you. So that's really quite exciting. So you're on the maiden voyage.
You are in the maiden voyage. All right, should we get started?
Let's get started. So we are showing you 3 different ways of constructing this quilt block, these quilt blocks, and we're doing it the traditional way, just like it is here in the pattern that you will be getting. So traditional cutting and piecing, and then also we're going to show you how to do it with rulers and a jelly roll, and then Joy is going to show you how to do it with the AccuQuilt Go. So this is block number 6. So let's move down here,
Okay.
and take a peek at it. So again, we have 4 different colors. This parallelogram, and now a flying goose. Last time, remember, we did this parallelogram, and then we had 2 half square triangles, and they were arranged a little bit differently. So again, I'm going to show you the cutting for these particular blocks. It has you cutting, and you will just follow the cutting directions up here. For every block, Doug has given you really nice cutting directions. And so for the background fabrics, you're going to make squares and squares. I think we should have 4 of these, but I don't know what happened to the other 2.
They're probably stuck to the bottom of your design board,
And then
Marcia.
we have some big squares too that he has you cut, 1 of each of the 4. So I think I'm going to start with these big squares because as you can see in the block here, these big squares are for these the goose part of the
block.
Yeah, this is a half.
It's a quarter square triangle.
But what he has you actually doing is cutting these this way and then again this way. And you can use your ruler, or you can use this nifty tool, and you just line it up on the 2 edges, and then you get a pin or something, and you just mark in these lines, and then that's your cutting line this way, and then you would do the same thing over here. Otherwise, if you line up your ruler, your straight ruler, it will kind of do the same thing. Some people absolutely love this. Actually, this one is probably better for when you're cutting on both.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to cut these. So the thing about this is cutting these both sides on the diagonals. You use one, and then you're going to have all of these left over.
But set them aside and save them.
Yep, you might need them for a different block. So that's how you cut the biggest part, and then you're going to cut these rectangles. And last time I showed you how to use the ruler, and I think this is really a great ruler. Yeah, I want to use the big one. There's big and little. I'm all of a sudden I just really am liking this big one. And you can cut up to a 6-inch finished square with this. But it's so darn simple.
And Marcia, she's going to actually turn her fabric upside down. In here, the lighting looks kind of, you maybe can't tell from your angle, but you have this right side up.
Oh.
And you really wanted it right side down.
I do want it right side down.
And then
These
I bet
these grunges sometimes are hard to see. So what you're doing here is this solid line along this along this angled edge here. This you're gonna put each corner in the corner of the thing, and you're gonna line this up along the straight edge of this one. And also the bottom, you can line up on the straight edge too, so you know that you're going to get it exactly perfect. And then you're just going to go ahead and cut this. Use these for another little bonus half square triangle if you're really into that kind of thing. Otherwise, toss them away. And then you're simply going to sew from here to here, and you'll make that angle cut, and you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So I covered this last time too. This will be used many more times in his quilt, and I can't remember if we did it in blocks 1 to 3 or not. The other thing then is those are your half square triangles.
Well, those are your parallelograms, and then you need to...
Then we need to make our half square triangles, and he just has you cutting these. Wait, no, those are the parallelograms. These are the flying geese units, and so what we need to do is those ones we would just cut from edge to edge down one side to make the half square triangles to go on the flying geese. So hopefully these are the right size.
Yep.
And then you will just sew them on like that to make a flying geese. Joy is going to give you more instructions on that. So then we end up putting these together, so you've got kind of this.
It's a little star in the middle.
It is. It's really kind of neat, and with these flying geese on the outside. So that's the traditional cutting. That's the traditional cutting for this block. Now I'm going to show you how we cut the using. Yeah, let's go up here for a second while I get this all.
We're going to next show you the specialty rulers, meaning our quarter square, half square, and I'm going to just move some of your bits out of the way so you have more room to work.
Thank you so much, because I am kind of messy, aren't I?
You're not. It's creativity all around.
This is the block that I used a different fabric group with, and this one I used a jelly roll, so a colored jelly roll, and then I used Moto Grunge jelly roll. You can use any background fabric you want. You will need some extra yardage, a little bit of extra yardage for this, because there are some squares. Some of the blocks have middle squares, and you either have to sew these together or have some extra yardage, but you can sew these together, and you can just use jelly rolls for the entire quilt if you want to too. So let's go down here and take a peek at this.
Okay, here we go.
So once again, using the jelly roll, we're going to do some half square triangles and some quarter square triangles for the actual this goose here. So it would be out of the colors, but I'm going to just use the white because you can see it so good. So you just line up. This has a blunt end up here, and you line this up down here at the 2.5 inch line, and you simply cut on both sides. I don't know if this is very well. I'm cutting backwards and upside down, so that's part of the problem. So then you have, I have 2 of these. Now these would be the colored ones that we're using.
And look at that notch cut off on the top. That dog ear is already removed.
Absolutely. Then for the half square triangles on each side of this, you can use, like, the angle is exactly the same. So we'll just go, and because we know we've already got the angle, whenever you have the angle, you know that your ruler is going to be upside down, and you're going to line it up here again with the line here, and then once again I'm going to show you how this is cut off. So this is, you're going to have one blunt end that you know is exactly at your 1/4 inch where you start. So you end up with these. Now of course this would be colored and this would be not, but those would go together, and Joy's going to show you how to sew these together. So this is how you do your quarter square triangles and your half square triangles from the jelly roll strips. This saves you a ton of time cutting. Honestly, it truly, truly does. Then once again, doing that same parallelogram like I showed you before. I'm not going to demonstrate it again, but you have the rectangle and then you have the squares, and you're going to use this ruler to make all of these, and then the flying geese, and those are the pieces that you need that I have on this board. My goodness, the white doesn't show up very good.
That's
but
all
this
right.
is the one made with jelly rolls, and now Joy is going to show you how to make the one using the AccuQuilt Go Me,
Yes.
or any AccuQuilt.
So
that you might
before
have.
we move on, I want to mention, because we talk about our specialty rulers, and you might be wondering how you can manage to get by with a 2.5-inch strip. And we're taking advantage of the fact that when you cut everything with a rectangle or a square ruler to make those pieces that you have to cross cut, either the quarter squares, across the diagonal, or the half squares once, there's the dog ears at the top and the bottom that are always trimmed down or trimmed off after you've sewn. And we're taking advantage of the fact that we actually don't need that fabric. So we actually can use a smaller piece of fabric to cut and finish the same size triangles, squares, flying geese, whatever. And so I mentioned that. You look like you have something you want to add to that.
Because it is true. These rulers also save you fabric.
They do save you fabric.
You'll use a lot less fabric when you use the specialty rulers.
Right. So I have my finished block here, and there's the little pinwheel going on in the middle, and then the geese around. And I do have the Go electric cutter in my life, but for this, the little Go Me is such a transportable, affordable cutting tool. It cuts quickly and accurately. I can do the 8 layers of fabric all at one time. I don't need that many in most cases for this block, but I love this little size. And if you're following along using your AccuQuilt, the dies that you need for this one are dies number 4, 5, and 7. And just a note out there in the world, 4 and 5 always are going to make your flying geese units in any block that you have. So I'm going to demonstrate how to quickly cut the half square triangles. I know I have shown this in the past, but also how to do the parallelograms. So I'm going to make use of Marcia's space here a little bit. And we're going to put the cutter in front. Whoops, that was kind of clunk, wasn't it, Marcia?
Not bad.
So I cut this strip on, ahead of time, and I simply measured, since I didn't mention it the last time, a 1/4 inch beyond here. And it's important that your strip is cut parallel to the selvage so that the selvage is parallel to this label on here. For quick cutting, I always just fold that strip back on itself. No accordion folding for this girl. I just fold it over.
Got 4 layers here.
I have 4 layers here.
But you could do 6.
I could, and I'm going to put my mat over the top, and I'm going to go ahead and Marcia's going to turn the crank the way the die wants to go. You could cut the other way too, and then we're going to give it a little bit of a pat on the back. We're going to slide it off, and there we have the triangles I need for this block, all in one pass. It took me just a couple seconds. Dog ears are cut off. I'm ready to go.
Perfectly cut.
Now, before you move that, I want to show, this is that parallelogram shape, and here we have the sticker, and my piece is a little oversized, but this one, you have to be sure that when you lay it down, I'm going to lay it just short of the dark gray here for a minute. Make sure that the edge of your fabric is straight to the dark piece on your die. Otherwise, your grain is going to be wonky. So I just set it on, and I'm going to slide it up until I cover my point, and you'll see my fabric is not straight on here, but that is on purpose. We're going to have you turn it again. And honestly, probably Marcia is a turn the other way kind of girl, but she's helping me out here. Because I am too. I tend to go one way, but it's designed to go either. I just slid that off, and I have a perfect shape cut here. Now, while this is out, I want to point out that when you sew these together, it goes together differently than you might think, because you might think that these go on the end, but these half square triangles actually go on the wide parts here, because when you fold this down, and I'm going to just move this off camera for just a second. what we're looking for here, and I of course wouldn't sew it on the board, but you're going to line up your two flat edges. There is a little tip that is going to show on one side for this. All right, so that is and we're done with the cutter, so
Okay.
do you want to just slide that to the side? Now in the assembly, Marcia and I have talked before about this, but when we go to make our flying geese units here, you're going to have your goose body, and you should be organized in how you sew these. It matters in appearance, probably not in execution, but I always start at the top and I put my first sky piece on my goose always on the top of a K. I kind of imagine this like a K, and I sew from one point to the next. And I do all of my pieces that way, and I press open. Now again, I don't press with an iron until I'm all done, and I mentioned previously that I usually start in the middle and do a quick press this way and a quick press that way, and that helps reduce the stretching on my angle. Then when I go to add this piece, the thing I would like to tell you is that when I line this up, I'm doing it off camera here with my fingernail. I'm going to go down here. So when I go to sew this, it would be tempting, and I have sometimes done this, sewn from like here to here or here to there. But typically I turn mine over to sew, and I don't know if you do, Marcia, or not. Probably depends on your moods like me. But it works out better if you sew from the back side, because that way you can make sure this piece doesn't squeech out or squeech in. So you can see better the alignment, and then as you sew, you won't catch this seam going the wrong way, because you can't see that seam when you're sewing from the top. So it's just a thing that I like to do. Of course, you can do it however you want. No quilt police out here. Now the next part are these triangles, and we mentioned that how they get aligned. So I have that one sewn on, and the point I want to make, I have the pin here just to remind me of the tip I want to share with you. In the instructions, it does suggest you should press these away from each other, which makes complete sense. However, when I was putting this together, I found that it was better to press them the same direction. And that is because when this gets sewn to this piece, when you flip it over, this bottom piece can then nest with your goose piece, and it's going to give you a better chance of getting these lined up beautifully, because they're going to nest instead of bulk up in that one place. The other thing I would like to point out to you is anytime you have a goose, you have these crisscrossy lines. Again, as you sew, make sure your thread that you're coming down just kisses the seam side of your point, so that when you press this open, you have the full amount of fabric showing. And again, on this side too, you can see that you just want to make sure that it clears that area. So when you press it open, you get the entire part of your tip showing there. So I'm going to go up high here for a minute. So here we assemble all four of those pieces the same way as we go, and then you will sew your two pieces, and finally you'll add that final seam. And I made my seams pink this time so that they'd show up on film for you. But again, I pressed my seams all one way, and you can see in this final seam there's a lot of bulk here, and I use my stylus again not to push or shove my fabric, but as I approach this, your fabric is naturally going to want to shift just a little bit. Just hold your stylus point here down, and it flattens that seam really nicely so that your seam is accurate and straight as it goes through the machine. And the final block. And then, as always, Marcia and I do all of our finger pressing or stylus pressing for the little bits, and we wait to do the final steam press when our block is complete or when our quilt top is complete. So that's block 6, Marcia.
Block 6. That wraps it up. So done. We're halfway through. You're halfway through. If you've been following along, if you haven't, these videos will be here forever.
And be
Well,
sure
for a
to
long time anyway,
right.
maybe
Be sure
not
to
forever.
like and subscribe on YouTube because we do a weekly broadcast on Wednesdays at 1 o'clock, and you'll find us here with all sorts of silliness.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us here again for the Chatsworth Block of the Month. And we'll see you back right here in 2 weeks for block number
7.
Yay. Thanks, everybody.